if you're an interior designer who avoids council and permit applications, this video is for you, because this is one of the reasons that a lot of interior designers are afraid of not only doing the work that they should be doing, but they're being scared away from these things because no one's out there that is teaching this stuff. So let's start with the fact that you don't need to be an experienced designer to actually submit permit applications and all of the things that go with it. What you need to do is understand your limits and understand what is involved, and you need to be taught by a good teacher in order to understand what is involved. So that is the first thing. But secondly, I think specifically if you are a beginner in the industry and avoiding, any type of work that might require understanding whether something might need a permit or something, you need to understand it first anyway, so that you don't accidentally step into that boundary where you could or should have submitted a permit and then didn't know that you needed to. So that's the danger, really, because unless you know a little bit about where the boundaries lie, you could be making some mistakes about it. So the best way to avoid that is just by getting educated around it. And you don't get that from design school. You don't get that from even working in an office in many cases. You have to get that directly from somebody who is doing that. So that might be a mentor, that might be a business person who has done that in the past, or it could be just a friend who is helping you and is willing to show you how things are done. There is no right or wrong. What you need to do is actually get up to speed on how to do it. So another thing about if you are a new designer or a designer who is struggling to make a living as an interior designer, this could be the thing that helps you stand out from everyone else. And I think because so many designers are avoiding the work that it's not necessarily more technical, it's just it's like the smallest boundary of extra knowledge that you need in order to do this. And it isn't anything different to what you already know. It's just that there are some things that you need to be taught around it or need to understand. So don't be afraid of it, because this could be the thing that sets you apart from other people and helps you to feel more professional and look more professional. But there are now a few things that I think you do need to understand. This is what I want to talk about today. And in most cases, you will be able to submit permits for interior design, even if you're not an architect or an engineer or a registered interior designer in some places. So the vast majority of work that we do as designers doesn't require any extra training for us to submit these applications, because they're designed for homeowners to submit these applications. So the difference is not that you're needing a specific training in order to do this, mainly for residential work, but that it's designed to be accessible for most people. And so in the areas where this is not the case, because there are, if you haven't read or if you haven't seen my video on title acts and practice acts, have a look at that video. I'll pop it up on the screen here. Have a look at that video first, because that kind of gives you an understanding of why this might be or why it might not be, whether you are allowed to do this or not. But in most cases, it's designed to be a very simple process for a homeowner. And that is why you shouldn't be afraid of it, because non-interior designers, non-architects, non-engineers are actually being able to do this every day. So you can too. You just need to know what it is that you're doing. So I think the other thing to consider is, most of the time, if you are doing drainage, electrical or plumbing work, you will need someone to either go through and stamp that if you're in the US, or if you are in the rest of the world, get a permit of some kind. And that's usually the builder who does it. So it's not your work, which brings me on to the next part, which is, you are an interior designer. You're not an architect. You're not an engineer. You're not a plumber. You're not an electrician. You're not a carpenter. You don't need to be those things. You need to be the person who communicates those things to somebody. And this is where the fear comes around, because a lot of designers have a lot of insecurity that they can't call themselves an interior designer because they don't have either the education or the degree or all of these other things that they think that they need to have, but they don't need to. It's just, you know, all of the wonderful stuff in the industry that's going on. But you don't need that stuff to be a great interior designer who can do this kind of work. But because a lot of interior designers feel so insecure, they will do two things wrong. And even these are the ones who have even tread into this territory to try and submit applications and have done something wrong. Because the two things that you need to take away from this video are, firstly, you can never guarantee an approval. An architect would never guarantee an approval because we can't. And this is something that I think is kind of interesting, because a lot of interior designers will try and overpromise, and that overpromising gets you in trouble because it makes you sound, you think it makes you sound less qualified in order to do the job, but actually it makes you sound smarter because you know what you're doing, because we can never, ever guarantee any kind of application that will be a success. And that is because it's not in our hands, but it's in the council's hands to approve it. It's not us approving it. So because of that, that is where we kind of cross the line. We think that, okay, well, I'm going to sound like I don't know what I'm doing if I don't promise that this is going to go through. But that's not the truth. So that is the first thing that you really need to take away. And just secondly is that you don't need to know everything. And this is really, really important. You don't need to know everything. You need to know your interior design for that project. That's it. So never need to feel insecure, because that's all an architect does. We know as much as we can about the building. Even the builder, until he gets on site, or she, doesn't know how what's going to be behind those walls. We can take a good guess. We can have a knowledgeable guess. But there's no way that we know what is really behind. And this is very specific to existing buildings. And a lot of you are working with existing buildings rather than new builds, where obviously you know what's behind the walls because we're building it from scratch. But those of us working on existing buildings can never know 100% what is behind that wall unless we knock it down, unless we break through it, or what's in the ceiling, whether we can put lights in or not, because we don't know what's there. So all of these things, I think interior designers can often feel really insecure that they don't know the answers to their clients' questions. But actually, you don't need to have the answer. You can say, I can get back to you. I don't know. I'll get back to you. I'll have to double check. I'll get back to you. Let me check with the architect. Let me check with the builder. I'll get back to you. And most of the time, you'll see that the architect and the builder cannot give you a straightforward answer either until they've pulled apart the building. And that's when you reveal what's actually happening. So I think that that's an important one to remember, that you can't know everything. We're the person who is informing others to implement the design, and that's all we need to be. So if you would like to understand what kind of drawings need to be submitted, what kind of what permits look like, who you need to speak to in your area, what these things entail, what it looks like, how much responsibility you take on, have a look at my mentorship, because this is something we cover in my mentorship. We also go into detail about heritage buildings, so historic buildings. If you love working on properties that are historic properties or period properties, that is also something we go through, and it's kind of information that no one else can give you, or no one else teaches, because it's the stuff that a company will covet, because that's their design secret that they've been working for so many years. So unless you've been privy to that information inside an office situation, which most designers haven't been, it's really rare information to get. So I share that with my mentees, and I help my mentees become interior designers who can work on period properties, or who can submit drawing applications, and elevate their skills to a new level that other designers just simply can't have, because you can't get that information anywhere. So I'm Jo Crowback. I'm an architect, I'm an interior designer, and I also am the CEO of the Interior Designers Business School here in London.